Hello, welcome back to the People First podcast, a space where teachers may address the challenge of viewing themselves as people first and teachers second. Today we are talking with Mrs. Lisa Beck, an associate lecturer of health science at Ball State University, health fanatic, and my advisor for this project. Today, she and I are going to be talking about a general overview of the dimensions of health, the body-mind connection when it comes to wellness, the importance of preventative care versus reactionary care, and how she herself worked to implement work geared toward taking care of herself as a person first and an educator second in her own life. I'm so excited about this conversation we're about to share with you because this is one of the women who inspired me to pursue this type of work in my own life. Her passion and energy for health and wellness is inspiring and contagious, to say the least. With that, we're going to go ahead and get this ball rolling. Hello, Mrs. Beck. How are you today?
I'm so good. Hello. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. What an amazing introduction. Thank you.
Yes, I am so excited as well. To get us going, do you mind going ahead and giving us kind of an overview of the different domains of health and kind of how they're connected?
Sure. So until about 1948, which I know is a really long time and you don't want a history lesson, but the World Health Organization had said that health was just not being sick. And the World Health Organization evolved that definition to say, hey, it's more of a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just not being sick. We know that there's a lot of factors that are involved. And I thought that was revolutionary. So then the dimensions of wellness became part of someone's overall health. And so depending on which model you look at, there's between 6 and 8 dimensions. So things like emotional wellness, which is your emotions, your feelings. It's where stress lives. Also, fun fact, and very scary, did you know that 40% of all deaths and 70% of all illnesses are either caused by or made worse by stress? Anyway, a little fun fact, a little trivia for you. We have intellectual wellness, which is the learning, the processing, the curiosity kind of part of the dimensions of wellness. There's occupational wellness, sometimes referred to as vocational wellness. This is what you really enjoy doing. It's your job. For students, it's their being a student. For teachers, it's being a teacher, but it's whatever work that you do. Physical wellness is obviously what most people immediately think of. Oh, this is my health. Just are you healthy? That absence of disease mentality. That is a vital part of wellness, but it's only one of the 6 to 8 components. There's social wellness, the fun one, dealing with people, being people. So very fun. And then there's spiritual wellness, which can involve religion for some people, but it is really just about a sense of belonging, knowing what your life's passion is, contributing to the greater good. I like to say it's the stop and smell the roses, just really observing nature and saying, gosh, that's beautiful. So that's kind of that part. And then some different models will take into account environmental wellness, which is now becoming much more commonly acceptable. And it's your contribution to the planet. What are you doing to be more sustainable? And then how does the environment that you live in impact your overall health? So things like allergies, those type of things. And the last one that is sometimes included in some dimensions is financial wellness. So are you saving? Are you paying your bills? Do you have a plan? That kind of thing.
Cool. Could you talk a little bit about how maybe these overlap and how that should be taken into consideration, particularly for teachers?
Sure. So one of the things that I really am passionate about teaching is that the dimensions of wellness, even though there are 6 or 8 of them, they are very much interconnected. You can't have one without the other. They each impact each other. And it's not a yes or no, it's a continuum. So, and the continuum changes hour by hour, day by day. And so if you have a lot of strength in like physical health, you are, fit, you eat well, you sleep well, you manage, that's fantastic. That's going to boost a lot of the other domains. It's going to help pull up your emotional health, your social health, your occupational health. But conversely, if you are really struggling in an area, say emotional health, you really have a lot of stress, maybe anxiety, depression, it's really going to pull down your other dimensions of wellness. Your social health, for example, you're not really going to be interested in hanging out with other people. You may not get as much reward from working that you would normally do. And so I love to explain that it's a continuum. So it's not a yes or no. And it's sort of a gradient that improves or struggles depending on the minute, the event that just happened, and that they're very much interconnected. And so from a teacher standpoint, it's really, really important for us to realize that we are not just physical health, but emotional, vocational, spiritual, all of those dimensions, and that we must take time to improve all of our dimensions, because the stronger our dimensions, the higher we are on those continuums for all of them, the better we will do. So I think that's very important that we take care of ourselves in all aspects of our health, not just, oh, I didn't get a cold this year, yay me. No, that's not enough.
Right. Something you said about how if you're struggling emotionally, like, or in any domain of your health, like that can pull down like other areas of wellness as well. It just reminded me of something that I read the other day about the fact that our feelings can serve as such an important gauge, like the emotions that we're feeling can serve as such an important gauge for other information that may be affecting us. And if we aren't taking time to cater to those things and take care of them and heal them, then it makes us so much less likely to do that in the other dimensions of our health. So like our physical well-being decreases, our vocational well-being decreases. And that's so important for teachers to understand, because not only do teachers have certain needs, but their students have certain needs. Just like according to the basic needs theory, they have 3 different kinds of psychological needs that are crucial for the participation of teachers, which have to do with their autonomy, their ability to develop, and just like certain like forms of relatedness, as in like how they're able to connect with others. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, that directly affects our ability to cater to those needs. And yeah, I just wanted to take a second to highlight that, because I think that's really important, and it was something that you kind of brought up. Kind of going off of that, like as someone who you have your own classrooms, like whether you're talking to 100 students in a lecture hall or you're talking to your 30 students in your health for educators classes, how do you work to take those connections into consideration and to take time either inside the classroom or outside of the classroom to heal yourself so that you can better cater to those needs of your students?
That's a great question. So I think the most important thing that I've learned, especially in like the last 4 years where I've really embraced physical fitness and trying to lose weight and just try to become physically healthier, I think it's about prioritizing my health, because I can't, have you heard the expression, you can't pour from an empty vessel, right? So if you don't have anything to give, if you're not taking care of yourself, then you'll be of no use to your students. And so one is I prioritize exercise. I try to prioritize sleep. I do prioritize it. I'm just not very good at it. Sleep, that is. I try to eat as healthy as I can, as often as I can. And so those type of things I think are really front and center for me to be the best me that I can be for my students. And then the higher your physical health is, the better you're able to manage and roll with stress and those crazy things that just happen, like, oh, I don't know, pandemic. So out of the, just kind of happen. So that's very helpful. Then I come to class and I feel for my students who are stressed out and have high stress workloads and things like that in their life. And I try to help them manage their stress by asking how they're doing. What can I do for them? I'm very much giving of all of myself with the empathy and just that is emotionally exhausting. And I'm a big cheerleader for health because I get it. People don't care about health. And so I'm always like, yay, bringing all the energy. That is exhausting at the end of the day. So it's very important that I take care of myself and I bring my A game to class every day so that I can help my students. And then helping them manage or work through drama that they're having or situations, helping them emotionally. We create a social community in my class. It's very important to us, making sure we use teaching strategies that help students work together who would never maybe talk to each other otherwise. So pretty great sense of community support that we build in that class as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's just so interesting how like that's naturally something that you've kind of come to do, because so many of the things that you were talking about do kind of fall under those assets that I think it's Dr. Peter Benson like talks about like the things that kids need to succeed. There's like 100 assets or something like that.
Yes.
And like community and role models and peer like influence and just like having the ability to talk to people about things is also important for development. And you're at this point working with college age students. Like it's amazing that you can do that, because so frequently in college classrooms, that's not something that's super prevalent. And I'm sure that it's something that a lot of, whether it's education majors or other majors, like feel that they're lacking, but it's something that I think that when you're able to do that in those programs and you highlight the importance of that just in your own classrooms where you're trying to support those future educators, they kind of understand the value of it if they've never experienced it before.
Sure.
And if you were in a classroom where you were still teaching like elementary, like K through 12, that's also so important for them too, because they are still, I mean, we're developing still at the college level, but like at that point, there are so many of us who like are more capable of being independent in the way we're able to support ourselves or ask for help. And that's
Yes.
not quite the same at the young, like at a younger level. And so again, just like the fact that you highlight that to people who are going to be in the classroom, I think is probably super beneficial for them understanding the fact that they need to do that when they are in those settings, and is something that needs to be done far more frequently.
Yes. One of the things, if I can just give a short sort of story, is one of the things that has been most eye-opening to me has been the amount of trauma that my college students have experienced and what they bring with them to class in the topics that we talk about. So things like suicide, violence, those type of abuse, neglect, and they really struggle to be in class and to deal with those conversations. And I think that I'm very empathetic towards that, and I'm very compassionate and try to help them through that. But it's also a reminder that they're going to need to deal with their emotional life, because they can be who they are when they have children in their classrooms. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to manage 30 other lives. And so their life kind of goes in the back burner for that. And so it's helpful for them to come to terms, or at least be aware of some of these emotional issues that they maybe didn't realize that they had, or had buried so far behind, or just have not yet dealt with, because this is a good opportunity in college before you get out in the classroom where, wow, I mean, you can still be you, but in front of the students, you have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting. So we really do talk about the importance of self-care and utilizing the resources that we have, and kind of breaking down some of those stigmas, like mental health, like counseling, those type of things, and going to the counseling center, getting medication if needed, talking to a therapist, using stress management techniques, going to the rec to work out, eating a healthier diet, so that they can be their best selves now, start planting those seeds to help them when they move out into the real world as adult teachers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's also very interesting to me, because like you as a professor are having to deal with that. And I think that your class, just having been in it, your class really does, because we're talking about all the dimensions of health so frequently and how they affect our students. It really starts to bring out how those also in turn affect us.
Yes.
And we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with as students in that moment. Like that's before we're even in your position, and we're like there's kids who don't show up to class like super frequently for certain periods of time. There are students who aren't turning in homework assignments. There are students, who just like aren't super present. They're dissociating in class, and you're watching that. But I think it's really important, without like pointing it out to them directly, like you're doing this right now, but being like, you see how much you struggle. Imagine if you have to go through that while you're also taking care of the 30 students that are going to be in your classroom. Isn't that something that you want to address before it's too late, like before you're having, and I think I talked about this with a past guest, just like before you're having a breakdown in front of them, or like before you have to like get up and leave the classroom, and then what? Like you like call your principal, like whatever you're having to do, you don't want to have to go through that in the workplace. You want to be able to take care of that in your personal life so that your professional life is also taken care of, and then your students are also taken care of. And I think that segues really well into the kind of like our next talking point, talking about being really proactive with the type of care that we're giving ourselves and that we're highlighting and modeling for our students versus being really reactionary to those moments that are examples of really heightened ill mental health or physical health, like whatever it may be. Can you just sort of give your thoughts on like the importance of that preventative or proactive care versus reactionary, and maybe talk a little bit about how you perceive that being connected to like how you have tried to live your life, or how you try to describe to your future teacher students how they could maybe approach their life once they get into the field.
Sure. So that's a complicated question.
It's okay.
Wow.
Say it. It's real.
That's deep. So I think a couple key things for that would be just being the role model to kind of be the center of what healthy can look like and what health is. I think sharing the journey with my students is incredibly important, being open and honest. And there's a difference between what we were just talking about, which is having it together for your 30 students and being transparent in that you're struggling. It's perfectly okay if a child in your class dies to say you're sad. It's perfectly okay to do that. But in the big moments, when the big things happen, you really are the classroom leader. So there's a time and a place for you to struggle, but there's a time and a place for you to be very supportive to your students, because they will come out of that traumatized,
Yeah.
if not.
It's like when a kid looks at their parent to be like, should I cry right now or should I
Yes.
be happy right now?
Yes, it's exactly like that. It's exactly like that. And so I think creating that sense of community, working with my students on understanding that a child who may come to class hungry, yes, we can give them a granola bar, it'll feed them that physical health, but there's so much more ripple effect of that. Why? Is there neglect? Is there abuse? Is there bullying? What other domains are affected? So I try to just be really proactive and transparent, and I'm by no means the epitome of health, no way, but person. I'm not a Fitspo, person doing all the crazy things on Instagram. I'm not doing that. This is what real life, manageable forever looks like. And when we talk about prevention versus reactionary care, one of my favorite things that I use in teaching is there's a poem from, believe it or not, like 1895. The poet's name was Joseph Mullins, and which blows my mind that this was a thought back then when using the medical model, which is, oh, your arm is hurt, let's cut it off, right? We didn't even have any other understanding of health. But back then, the poem is called A Fence or an Ambulance. And I think it's genius and has applications to what we're talking about right here. I won't read you the poem and I won't spend a lot of time, but essentially there was this beautiful cliff and tourists came and they were looking over the cliff and they fell off the cliff, and the ambulance had to come and save them all the time. And the problem with that is it got to be expensive and time consuming and people died. So the townspeople came together and said, well, what can we do? And they decided they're going to station an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Very much reactionary. We'll just have the ambulance there. So when they fall off, the ambulance doesn't have to drive there, we'll already be there. So, I mean, again, this was kind of cutting edge back in 1895. But then the townspeople came together and said, maybe we should build a fence at the top of the cliff to keep people from falling over. And that very much is helpful in prevention. If we can prevent people from falling off the cliff, we don't need the ambulance. But people will always, in today's lingo, they'll always try to get the perfect selfie. So they will still fall. So you still need the ambulance, but the fence can greatly reduce the need of that. And so for me, in my students, I really talk to them about prevention, doing all the things that you can, self-care, putting yourself first, setting limits, getting rid of toxic people in your life, exercising because it gobbles up the stress hormone and it releases the endorphins, eating healthy foods, which seems so minor, but it has such a major impact. And so doing all of those prevention things not only wards off disease and illness, but brings you to a higher A game, that you are more able to with punches. And that alone is pretty awesome. So I really spend time trying to help them understand that.
Right. And that's also just so huge for future educators to learn, because they may not have seen it and their students may not see it and from anyone else throughout their life. Or if they do, it's very late in the game, or even if it is later in the game, it's just, I don't know, it's different than if you kind of have that foundational understanding of the importance of it early on. Because when you see someone who you look up to, like when you have a role model in your life, or you have just like an adult in your life other than your parents who is demonstrating to you the fact that they do this for themselves and it makes them feel better, then you're more inclined to do that for yourself as well. And it has countless benefits, not only for the relationship between the student and the teacher, because they trust them, they see how they're healthy, and they trust them to help them do the same. It also has like tons of benefits for the academic achievement that students are able to see and make possible for themselves, because like you said, like when we're doing better in one area of the dimensions of health, then we're doing better in the other. And so like for students, vocational health is the fact that they're a student. So when their emotional and physical and intellectual health is up, then their vocational health as a student is also going to be up. And it allows them to also then attend to their social life better. And that also in turn has benefits with all of the other ones. It's just all so connected, and it's just like a little web.
It is. The ripple effects through the domains are just amazing. Like, just think about if you're really tired or if you're hangry. I mean, we're adults, right? So we can manage it, but we also get short-tempered. So if you are a child who didn't have the coping skills or the vocabulary to maybe explain how you're feeling, and you snap at somebody, well, that's going to get you punished. And depending on the level that you get snapping, you may get timeout or detention or even suspended, which definitely then impacts their learning, their social, their mental. Oh my gosh, it just is a whole lot of things. So helping everyone to understand the importance of some of those basic foundational health practices is very critical to success, not just in the moment, but for their life.
Yeah, especially since like caring in schools has just been also shown, like when you're caring for yourself and you're able to care better for your students because you're taking care of yourself, like it's related to not only higher levels of academic success and like increased like better relationships, I guess, just like increases how well your relationships are with your students, but it also increases their school participation. It decreases high risk health behaviors, decreases student suspensions, and future social, and it also affects future social and emotional development, because having those deeper relationships and having that foundational understanding and having that value for your health just does so much for you in the long run. Not only as a student, but as a teacher. Like it's for everyone. It's for
everybody. Really fast to go with this is a quote that you heard 1 million times in my class. It's from Dr. Charles Bosch, that healthy students are better learners. Like, we cannot separate health from learning. We just cannot. So if in health, we know is all of those dimensions. Healthy students are better learners. So we're obligated as teachers, I feel, to help students be as healthy as they can be, which will lead to success across the board.
Right. It also just helps us be healthier because, I mean, whether you're forcing yourself to do these things or not, eventually they'll become habit. And once you develop healthy habits, then your life in general becomes more sustainable. Like all of those other like high risk behaviors related to your health, they decrease for students, they also decrease for you, and they increase your ability to show up in those ways that you talked about, like being more empathetic, being more compassionate, being more able to just sit and listen to issues that your students may have. And it's like caregivers and people who are in helping professions, and teaching as a helping profession, are more susceptible to burnout just in general, like not just like feeling like you're tired every day, but like emotionally and physically, like you're drained from having to deal with other people's problems every day. And it's something you want to do, but you're almost doing it begrudgingly if you're not helping yourself and your well-being first. So it also helps with teachers' sustainability and their ability to show up every day, their ability to still stay passionate about their profession, and for schools to retain, like for us to decrease this teacher shortage that we're struggling with. It's all really, really important.
Oh, you've made some really good points. In my class, we talk about burnout, which is just that fight or flight response that gets to a maximal load that you can no longer tolerate. It really is an actual thing. People get hospitalized as a result of that overwhelming drain on their system. But in our class, we also talk about this idea of the care cycle. And you had mentioned how, when schools feel, or when students feel connected, they first connect to people before they connect to the institution, when they feel cared about. And but teachers have to feel that too. We need to have that care. So it's not about giving all that you can. You need to be able to get that back. And so you get that back in things like spiritual wellness, which is just that stop and smell the roses. My gosh, that tree is beautiful. Let me take a picture of it. Or just doing yoga outside, or taking a nature walk, or praying or meditating, or whatever it is that you do, but just taking that moment. It's having people that love and care for you, who support you. So whether that's a significant other or just your besties. And then it's about being in a school that has a culture that nourishes and fosters teachers, that appreciates them, respects them, values them, so that you're getting that care back. So it's not 100% out, because that won't last so much. You will burn out in a hot second. And with all the things that students come to class needing, I mean, they need schools. We found this in the pandemic. I think we've always known it, but it really got highlighted in the pandemic. The things that schools do for the students, for their families and the community, whether that's breakfast, lunch, dinner, after school, before school care, laundry services, primary health care. Lots of students only see the school nurse and get for all their health care, just their physical activity and daily movement. And so it's a wide variety of things, so kids need a lot of things, and you are only one person. And I get it, you want it, but yeah, so it's very important to take care of yourself well, that care cycle.
Yeah. I've never thought about so many of those things before. Like I've never thought about the fact that to feel more connected to the institution, you have to feel connected to people first, and you're less able to do that when you're like these other things aren't attended to. Like you're less able to connect to people when you yourself are not, like you're not capable of it.
Right.
And connecting to the institution can also help you place a greater value on education in general, which explains all the things that we see. Like it explains how this does have a correlation with student retention or dropout. It does have a correlation with student achievement or lack thereof. It does have an effect on the way that relationships grow or do not. Like I've just never thought about it in that way, and I loved that. I just nerded out a little bit.
I freaking love health. Health is at the center of everything. I freaking love health.
It just makes so much sense. And it's just like one explanation for everything, right, but it's an explanation worth understanding and thinking about and hearing. Okay. Where do you see the future of this kind of attention to self-care? Like, where do you see it moving? Like, if you could create like a pretty little model, whether it's just like for your classroom, like for you as a teacher, or if it were for like a teacher education program, or if it were for like some sort of professional development that you would be like, if I were in a school right now as a teacher, this is what I would want that professional development to look like for me and my colleagues. Like, how do you see that?
Again, great question. Very fun to think about. If I could fix the world, what would it look like? One positive thing I can say about this, about your generation, about this college student's age, you guys are really self-care aware. I just had a dinner with some friends the other day, and we were talking about we're Gen Xers, and we just work ourselves to death, and there's never been a self-care thought in our head. But you guys are really, I don't know if you grew up with it or if you just learned the value of it. I'm not sure who taught it to you, because if your parents are my age, then I'm not sure, but your generation really self-care first. And I see the Instagram posts, self-care and nails, or a bubble bath or massage, or just day away, or not replying to emails after 8 p.m. or not doing homework on Sundays. So I think those sort of personal boundaries that this generation has is going to serve you all very well, which is great. So that is a first start. So I think fostering that. Oh yeah.
Can I pause? I kind of have an explanation for it.
Okay, great.
So, and this isn't like like the last thing, like it's not like a one thing like describes the whole reason for everything, but I know from this book I'm reading, I think I referenced it in the last episode as well. It's by Dr. Mark Brackett from Yale University. He talks about the fact that so much of the research around the importance of self-healing, self-care, and learning emotional regulation, and how that in turn can affect your professional and personal life. The earliest like instance, I think, of even the term, maybe it might be emotional regulation. I'll put it in the fact check at the end of this, but the earliest time that that's ever even been coined was only 40 years ago. Okay. So if you think about it, and like it's been progressing since then, but this research is so new. Like yes. The people who, like at your age, like that's like when, like that's when it had just started, or like when you were younger. Whereas like when we were younger, it had time to progress a little bit. And right. So like it was more present in our textbooks, or it was more present just in the things we hear on a day-to-day basis, because our family or our friends or our teachers were kind of starting to learn about it. So it's at least been something that's been whispered in our ear in some regard for most of our lives. Whereas for people who are older than us, like it's not something you grew up with. It's just not the same level of exposure, and experience and exposure has such like it has to do with everything, and like your ability to understand and value something, same as how we were talking about when you don't have people in your lives who value eating healthy, you're not going to value eating healthy as easily. Like it just doesn't come to you because it's not what you saw or you heard about early on. So just a quick like.
No, I love that. And so that really is great if that's not what you've seen, or it goes back to mentoring, right? So if you have a teacher who embraces that culture of self-care and boundaries, then that's a great modeling for their future students. So I definitely think this idea of really promoting good mental health in our future teachers is incredibly important. Equipping them with tools and skills that they can utilize, helping them to live their best life. I know as corny and cliche as that sounds, but genuinely helping them to live their best life. I think if we can get that started in college, and we can foster that as their new professionals, because that first 5 years, the dropout rate for new teachers is astronomical. And that does lead to the teacher shortage. And then we get crappy teachers and students don't learn. And then they drop out. And it's just, the cycle, right? So I think we have the teacher preparation program, and just having a solid, good health class. The CDC recommends every elementary school teacher be trained in school health. And I get that we're not teaching health lessons necessarily, but just that idea of understanding the dimensions of wellness and how they impact that student sitting in the desk, and also impact you. And then I think, so the pre-service part, we can utilize campus resources. We can help students live their best life so that they go into the profession feeling as optimistic as they can. But I think where we fall short is once teachers get into the profession, they start to find those people who are toxic, right? Like you're, at least I was taught, and I still teach my students, not to go to the teacher's lounge. That's where complainers go. That's not where you want to go. I have had students that say they didn't go to the teacher's lounge for the first 5 years because I told them that's not where they should go. I'm like, well, there's usually a pop machine in there, so you might want to go get a pop, or bottled water. There's a bottled water machine in there. But anyway, for the health. But it's interesting to me that the toxic colleagues can be really a problem. And I always just want to scream, like, if you hate teaching so much, why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully those generation of people will be retiring in the next few years, and the people who are genuinely passionate about being there will be there. But there's a subdivision of health that I'm super passionate about, and it's worksite health promotion, which is just essentially making sure that we have the healthiest workers, because just like healthy students are better learners, healthy employees are more productive. And so fostering worksite wellness for our teachers, giving them tools and resources, employee assistance programs, which is free mental health care, having good health insurance that they can go to the doctor and not have to fight through being sick, having paid sick leave, creating challenges that are fun but ultimately lead to healthier habits, like weight loss challenges, quitting tobacco classes, 100 miles in 100 days walking program, something like that. Those supportive worksite wellness things are very important. And then just really, I think it's really become a bigger issue in the last 5 years. It's really come to awareness. We know about it for 10 or 15 years, but it's really made its idea, which is this idea of adverse childhood experiences, or what we call ACEs, which is trauma, what happens to kids who experience trauma. And I think more professional development for teachers in the field to better understand the relationship of that impact for a child who's had trauma and what that looks like for their overall health and their learning. There's a gigantic impact in their future health, but I get that that's not the immediate concern for elementary teachers. But just understanding how all that works together, I think would be really helpful to give teachers more appreciation of the value of taking care of themselves so that they can better take care of their students.
I like that. I like how you touched on almost every single level of it too. There was something that I wanted to return to, and I don't know if it's going to be what you're expecting, but the part where you were talking about the not going to the teacher's lounge because like that's where the complainers are. Mm-hmm. I feel like for me,
typically that's where they
right. But I feel like for me, that would be the most interesting place to go. Like, as someone who does kind of want to veer more towards the professional development side of this. Because in my mind, like, I don't know if I can be a teacher without these supports in place. Mm-hmm. So I would want to travel to the teacher's lounge and hear what they're saying. Like, what is it you're complaining about? Or what is it that's hard for you right now? Because if you're talking about it here, I know it's influencing what's going on in the classroom when you leave here. 100%. So how can I attend to that? How can I listen to you and understand that maybe this is where not only you're being underserved, but like your colleagues down the hallway are also being underserved? Where can we go with that? How can we create a community in that teacher lounge setting where teachers are feeling supported by other teachers, but where we also, and this goes back to the pre-service teacher education, but I think that a part of what should go on in learning about the necessity of self-care should also be about learning about what your values are so well when it comes to why you want to teach that, and really defining what your mindset is going to be for your life as a teacher when it comes to yourself, when it comes to your student, when it comes to your ability to be in the classroom and be present and be the best support you could possibly be. Not all the time, but like whatever your ideal would be for at least maintaining. Right.
Knowing your why.
And knowing your mindset as well. So like, are you going to look at that person who's complaining as someone who they're just the complainer, and you're going to look at them with a deficit mindset? That's all you are. That's all you're ever going to be. Or are you going to look at them and your students with an asset mindset and think about what can you bring to the table because you see this from a certain perspective. Like, I think that's really valuable. And because you know your own values so well, you're not going to be brought down by them or influenced by their way of thinking in such a way that it's going to alter the way you want to show up in the classroom. But it is going to allow you to see that maybe not everyone is as capable of showing up in the classroom like I do. And maybe that, again, just shows the necessity of why this work is so important.
Yes.
I don't know.
I think more administrators should spend time in the teacher's lounge to do exactly what you suggested, which is figure out what's going on and seeing what barriers that they can help to remove to make it an easier process. As a teacher who's already exhausted and, you know, giving so much, if you go into that and people are complaining, it's really easy to add to your overwhelmedness, your burdenness. And so it's just a fragile place. I love where you're coming from. You're like, I want to go there. I want to figure out what's going on, which is great. But as a new teacher, that can be kind of hard because you're really frustrated with reality because reality does not always match what we see in the movies. Get to the teacher's lounge and, oh yeah. Well, I had that student last year and I had her own their mom and oh my gosh. Enough and you know, so yeah.
It's easier said than done for sure.
Right. But so much room to grow. And if you're like, what is the problem? Dude, that's where you go find out. People are talking about what the issues are. They're screaming essentially with how they're hurting and what's failing them. So let's work with administration and community resources if we need to kind of break down those barriers.
Right. And kind of, you can go ahead.
No, please do.
Okay. I was going to say, going back to the book that I had talked about before, there's a program that this director of emotional intelligence, he has this thing called Ruler. And the first step of Ruler is recognizing what you're feeling.
Yes.
Or what others around you are feeling. And then you go through the process of understanding and learning about it. I don't remember all the letters, but like he talks about the fact that once your ability to first recognize like what is the actual emotion that you're having here, and in that teacher's lounge setting, a lot of the times it's going to come off as anger or frustration, or you feel just like you've been wronged. But a lot of that is just going to come off that way because you're hurting, and we don't have the emotional vocabulary to really describe that well enough. And that's something that we need to teach ourselves so that we're, again, better able to show up and better able to address our problems and heal. And then we can show up for our students and show them how to do the same. Like it all just, it goes together.
It does.
And I don't know, that's just another step that I think that needs to go into it. And it needs to happen in our teacher education programs too, because I guarantee you, as someone who's going through one, that there are times when students in those programs are feeling unheard, and it's starting in those programs, and then they get into the schools and they don't feel like they can talk about it. So where are we ever learning it? And then when are we ever going to teach it to our students if we've never learned it?
Right. That's so well said. So well said. Absolutely. When we talk about not having the emotional vocabulary, Oprah Winfrey, I loved her show back in the day. And she used to say that anger was really fear turned outward. And that was a big aha moment for most of the country. Like before she said that, we just thought anger was exploding on people, but it's really not. If you stop in the moment and really identify that feeling, in some cases, it's really just fear and you lash out at someone over that. So I think finding that emotional vocabulary, taking a minute to recognize where you are, to, again, like you said, to start in pre-service education, to identify those feelings and to be heard, whether that's student like boards to contribute to curriculum development, or if it's at the university level, to start there, to empower students. We need to empower teachers as well, because they have so much to give.
Yeah. There was something I was going to say and I forgot it because I was listening so well.
Good listening skills.
Yeah. I don't know. It's gone. It's okay.
Something better will come next.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It needs to be addressed. If not now, when?
Yes.
So, yeah. Oh, it's gonna bug me. It's gonna bug me, whatever I was gonna say. It's not your fault.
I was talking about Oprah and identifying feelings and that.
Oh, fear. Fear versus anger. That's what it was. Yes. I was going to say that it also like takes a lot of discomfort to actually take the time to look at what that anger actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that is frowned upon. It's very, people view it as weak to be emotional. People view it as annoying to be communicative about it. People view it as snowflakey is something that's going around a lot right now, like touchy-feely, sensitive. And there are people who use their emotions as an excuse to not do things, but there's a difference between that and actually taking the time to address it and to move forward by doing that. And that's also something that should be highlighted and taught, because if not, then it is just a series of excuses and it just runs rampant and nothing ever happens. And then our students are taught that and our friends are taught that, and we're not ever getting anywhere.
And then we teach our students that. They teach their future. Yeah.
And it becomes, I don't know what figure it would be. I wanted to say it's a loop, but it's not really a loop. It just becomes it becomes a bad habit after a certain point. And if you're never, ever going to break that continuum of not talking about it because it's taboo for whatever reason, or because it's a sign of vulnerability and you view that as weakness, if you're never going to address that with people, then they never learn. And then the behaviors that you're frustrated with, for them being like making excuses, or for them always being angry, or for them always being explosive about the way that they approach things, that's never going to change.
True.
So
I think on the greater scale, we need to really destigmatize emotional health and getting therapy and counseling and doing work on yourself. And in the greater scheme of things, we could do better on that as well.
Yeah. Is there anything else before we get to the rapid fire questions that you would like to address?
I would just like to, I love this conversation. So thank you for inviting me to say it. One thing to kind of keep in mind is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that very foundational things, are very much connected to this idea of domains of health, right? So at the bottom, we have like safety, security, food. So we have those very foundational things. In schools, we've realized in the pandemic, I mean, we've known it, but it's become more evident in the pandemic that schools provide a lot of that. They provide the before and after school care, the nutrition, they provide those foundational things for a lot of students. You can't be your best self. You can't have love. You can't set goals. You can't reach that epitome of living your best life if you don't have those foundational skills. And I think that really translates to dimensions of health, in that you need to have a good, solid physical health in order for your social health, your intellectual, your vocational health, your emotional health, for them all to be as well too. I think there's a good parallel there for you to live your best life, for you to reach your full potential, for you to be living out your life's meaning's purpose. It starts with that strong foundation. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And that's something that I think actually ties back to kind of what we were talking about as far as just like meeting certain self-care needs, I guess, goes. Like if you're not attending to whatever level of foundational needs are most readily available to you,
right,
then you're never going to be able to attend to the higher level ones.
Yes.
And I feel like I've had a lot of conversations about this in particular lately, because I don't even know why. Probably just because I've been going through some difficult times, but I am less capable of attending to this higher level need of like paying attention to my vocation, which right now is student, because there's something here
Right.
on this lower level of needs that isn't being addressed, like that I haven't known how to address for a few months now. And I've recently been doing the hard work of digging that up and talking about it and trying to address with those closest around me how I can move forward and they can move forward with me so that I do feel supported or so that I do feel understood and heard. But I can't attend to the rest of this without that being done. And it also in a way kind of also affects like my lower level, like I'm not eating as well. It all kind of plays into each other. And if we don't have a proper understanding of that, and if our students don't have a proper understanding and value for that, then it's going to be detrimental. But it can be really great if we do, and really healthy if we do.
It'll make our foundation. I mean, it's always going to be a part of us. So it's never we can get past it, but it's always going to be part of who we are. But it serves as a strong foundation of who we are so that we can continue to build better futures for ourselves and help our children to do that as well.
I think it's also really important to mention just briefly about that, because I think this is something that you had communicated in my class with you before, is that you're not always going to stay on one level once you reach there. It's going to be a lot of up and down, back and forth, and that's okay. But it's also not something to be ashamed of. And it's also just more of a reason why you should feel like you want to address it, you know?
Sure. Can I give you a quick, crazy example that can highlight this? So if we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy, let's say you've reached the pinnacle, you started your own business and it's your passion and you are like, it's your dream come true. And a hurricane came and wiped out your house, wiped out your business. You're not at that top anymore. You're not thinking about that. You're just trying to survive, find shelter, find food, and you're going to rebuild your way up. It doesn't mean you can't go back to that or a new version of that, but you're exactly right in that it is constantly this up and down. The health dimensions are a continuum. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse. It's that constant seeking of the highest level, but to do that, you need to kind of work your way through those levels before.
Yeah, cool. Yes, I liked that example. I think it was very relatable because not everyone has gone through that, but they've seen people who have gone through that, like whether it's through the news or
And if it's not a hurricane, it's a fire. If it's not a fire, it's just you lost your job. I mean, 2008 with the economic downturn or the COVID loss, oh my gosh, we lost tens of millions of jobs in like overnight. So it could be anything. You could get sick and not be able to work. I mean, the list is endless, but it's the exact same concept. You were living your best life and you were right there, and then something happened. You got knocked down a few pegs, and whether that's actually a physical structure that you don't have safety or security, or you're not having food, or it could be any of those things. But yes, I think it's a good visual for how we move up and down.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and move into the rapid fires.
Your audience should know that I'm mortified by these, so don't judge these answers. Do not judge my answers. I'm mortified by these.
No.
So much pressure.
There's none. No pressure. It's the opposite of that. It's just like a getting to know you a little bit. Sorry, I'm making you be vulnerable. I'm not sorry about it. I'm sorry that I'm not sorry.
Fantastic.
Okay, why did you become a teacher and why have you stayed in the profession? I think this relates a lot to how we were talking about the importance of knowing your why and like really being solid in your values.
100% it does. So it's a great first rapid fire question because it does connect very well. So do you know when you guys, when everybody's a little kid and they play with dolls or they play with trucks or they play house or they play grocery store, do y'all know how that works, right? I played school. Like when I was in kindergarten, I played school. My dad was a teacher. He used to take me to his school. I used to get the teacher edition of the books. I had a desk at my house. We played school. I put my dolls out and I was their teacher, and we did homework and I graded it, and oh my gosh. So, and my mom is a nurse. And so health was always something that I was very passionate about, but teaching my dad what it. So I became a health teacher. I think that, I mean, if ever there was karma, here we are. I can't love either side more. Like, I freaking love health. If you've had me, I say that on the regular, because I genuinely love health. But I don't just love health. I love to share my passion of health with others. And I just feel blessed that I had my education career start is teaching middle school. That was amazing. And now I come and I'm working with pre-service teachers to help them get inspired to be healthy and to share their health and new skills with their future students. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah. You would be shocked at how many people say the exact same thing for the first thing, that they either, so I've, like, not just through this podcast, but like almost anyone that I've talked to about why do you want to be a teacher? Why did you become a teacher? They're like, well, I used to play school.
Oh my gosh. I thought it was long.
No, it's such a normal, like, regular answer for teachers. And it's kind of funny because, like, there are probably other people who ended up becoming nurses who they played nurse. Like,
yes.
It makes sense if you think about it. Also, I've noticed that a lot of people talk about the fact that one of their parents is a teacher. So both of those things, if anything, are like stereotypical for a teacher. Like, I mean, I played teacher with my brother when I was younger. Like, it's just normal.
Okay. I am feeling very vindicated now at age 46.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one.
Okay.
If you could select one or two values that you would consider your core values, what would they be, and how does being a teacher feed these values for you?
Okay. So I think the truth is I am really committed to living your passion. Like, find your it, whatever it is, and find a way to do it. Because you've heard the expression, if you do what you love, it's not like you're working a day in your life or something like that. As long as you're doing what you love. I work a lot in this job. I mean, I work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, 12 months a year. But it doesn't feel like work because I love it so much. I know without a doubt I was put on this planet to teach health. So I just say, live your passion. You first got to find it. You got to cultivate it, but live your passion. Whatever that is, do it. And do it as big as you can and as often as you can and for as long as you can. Does that work? Is that a good answer?
Yeah. I think that also makes a lot of sense for, like, having been in your class, like how that directly connects to the way that you teach and the way that you make an effort to build your classroom culture, because you really do. Like, it's very apparent how much you care, and that's why people are like, I'm in Lisa Beck's class this semester. Like, they get excited about it. They know who you are. Like, my roommate was in one of your lecture hall classes, and she was like, yes, I love her. Like, it's like you bring that feeling so easily, and I can definitely see how it would feed, like, how being a teacher does feed that for you, and how it, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. And that idea of doing what you love, then it almost a shield to protect you against the drama, the negativity, the burnout. It doesn't protect 100%, but it definitely helps to reduce that, because you are living your passion. You're doing what you love. So it lessens it to just background noise. I'm not going to say that it doesn't always impact me, because it does occasionally, and I get really whatever, but man, at the end of the day, I'm still a freaking health teacher. I have the greatest job on the planet. I'm not joking.
No, I know.
I do it at Ball State, where I graduated from. I am the luckiest person.
What are your top 3 favorite TV shows or movies? of all time? As in, if you only had to watch these three things for the rest of your life and nothing else, what would they be?
Okay, so here's a little thing about me. I'm a TV addict. I watch TV all the time, all thing, and Netflix and Hulu. That's just only ruined my life because now I can binge it. I'm a binger. Like I am a professional binger. Can I get paid to do that? I should do that. But so I like all TV. I love all. I don't like horror things, so I don't like to be scared, but I like all things. So my husband would be so proud of me with this answer. He was a Western show fanatic. And when we had cable, every Saturday and every Sunday, all day long, he would have the cowboy shows on. And I would thought he was goofy, but I have come to love Gunsmoke. I don't know why. Anyway, so I've seen every episode a few dozen times. It's like the longest running show in history or something like that. And so it's a good show, I guess. I don't know, but it's kind of, I do like it. And if I could only watch one show, I guess that would be it. And then the second one, I couldn't pick a second one. I can't because I love all medical shows because I love health. So any of those medical shows, Grey's Anatomy, New Amsterdam, I'm a big fan of that right now. Chicago Med. There was a show in the winter called Transplant. Very cool. It was about an immigrant doctor who came to America and is practicing. It's cool. Any of those, The Intern, any of them. I like them all. And then because I couldn't come up with my favorite shows. I did a bad job with that. So then I thought about the movies, and if I could only watch one other movie, there are so many because I love movies too. If I could only watch one, I think it would be Inception with,
Okay.
you know who I'm talking about? Leonardo DiCaprio.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy movie, and I've watched it, I don't know, 30 times, and I'm still like at the end, was he awake? Did that fall over? Did the top fall? I don't know. So that's where I'm at with that. I love freaking TV. I love health and I love TV. And if health is on TV, get out of my way.
You broke the rule, but it's okay. I'll let you.
Thanks.
I'm also, the next question is, we switched it up for you because you were like, don't have an answer to the other one. So what has been your favorite learning experience and why?
Okay, so we have established that I freaking love health, right? So I am a nerd. And a couple years ago, I was invited to the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, to their headquarters for a worksite wellness conference, which I know is not school health, but worksite wellness is very much a passion of mine in addition to school health, because they fit very well together because you got to have healthy teachers in order to have healthy schools. But so I got to go to the Center for Disease Control. I had 3 days of just the most life-changing presentations from the leading experts in our nation and our world. Like the people that write the textbooks, the people that write the best-selling books, the people who create the theories, they were the presenters. And I was just little old me from Indiana sitting there amongst the who's freaking who. I was fangirling. I'm not gonna lie. I took a book. I had them autograph it. And then it was amazing that the year after that, I was actually able to use that book in a class that I don't ever teach. But I was like, oh no, we're gonna use this book because this is perfect for this class. And it was very exciting. So that was my favorite experience. Going to the Center for Disease Control, we took a tour. We saw their emergency operations center, which had only at that point been activated 3 times in history: the HIV crisis, Ebola, and something. Oh, SARS. SARS was the only other 3. And since then, now we've had it obviously activated for COVID. So that was just awesome. I mean, that's sort of the Mecca for health people, the CDC. Like, there's nothing higher than that.
The Mecca.
So, the Mecca. It's sort of the Mecca. It's the crown jewel. So I feel so amazing that I got to go there.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
In one sentence, why should we explore work that encourages teachers and others to see teachers as people first?
Okay, I kind of said this earlier, but I believe it to answer this question. So you can't pour from an empty vessel, right? We have to put teachers first. We have to, teachers need to feel valued, respected, challenged, and appreciated. They need a voice. They need a vote in order to give those things to our students. So we have to put teachers first so that we take care of teachers, because that care cycle can't continue if they're not cared for. Did I pass?
You did it. You did it. And
Yay.
and that's about it.
Okay.
Man, have you loved the conversation actually? Because I've loved
Yes,
the conversation.
it was very fun. I love teaching health, so can't go wrong with that. And you're adorable. So thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this, even though it was hard to get here. Just for reference, everyone, we've had to reschedule this like 5 or 6 times on both our ends. Like we have just, it's been a struggle, but we made it work. And I am so appreciative of you giving your time not only to this specific podcast episode, but just to this project in general. As I said before, Ms. Beck is my advisor for starting the foundation of this site and this podcast. And she has been exactly what I needed at every turn, even if she hasn't understood that herself. She's been that like she's been one of those assets that I needed in my life. And I appreciate her being here so much. And to our listeners, don't forget to always view yourself and others as people first. Take care of yourself and spread love. Bye.